I would ever have the chance to have a conversation with Vince Gilligan. I have to say, I can say openly that he's one of my modern heroes. I've been a big fan from a long time ago, so I suddenly have this chance to have a talk with him. The circumstances is it's in front of you, so but I'm not annoyed by that. So I'm really happy that you're here. We are not in a bar. We are here, but let's make it feel like we are in a bar.
Okay, sure. I've got a lot of practice with talking in bars.
Yeah.
So that'll be good.
So I don't know if I should make some introductions because you already know who he is, all the things that he's done, and we are kind of tight with time. We don't have a like a really long time to do this. So let's go straight to the point.
Okay, sure. You got it.
So we are supposed to talk about Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, but during the 90s, I was a kid of my time. So I need to ask about the X-Files.
Sure. Oh, yeah, that was a fun job.
When you see Better Call Saul and you can perceive the amount of freedom, the astonishing freedom you have in these days as a writer or as a director, when you see those episodes in which you don't have, apparently there are no rules when you see an episode of Better Call Saul, how do you look back at those times where you have to make X-Files episodes so tight?
Yeah.
45 minutes feature films.
Yes.
With a cliffhanger with any commercial break.
Yes.
Like so tight.
Yeah.
How do you remember that?
The X-Files, I was so lucky to have that job, Nacho. I was on that show for 7 years, from about 1995 to 2002, and it was a wonderful, wonderful job, and I learned everything that I could not do the show, Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, without the knowledge that I learned from working on X-Files. And it was a hard job. The helpful thing for me on the X-Files is I was never the boss. I was just an employee. I was just a writer. And it was very hard to work that fast because in network television, as you said, the episodes have to be a very precise length, very specific length of time. I think on the X-Files it was 42 minutes or 43 minutes and a certain number of seconds. So you have to do everything in a very exact amount of time. And on Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, the AMC, the company we work for, is much more forgiving and lenient, and they let us turn in episodes that vary by a few minutes, sometimes many minutes. So we're very lucky that way. And also on the X-Files being network television, 1 year we did 26 episodes. We do now on Better Call Saul, we do 10 episodes in a year. Actually, it takes a little more than a year. So that was a very tough film school to go to, the X-Files. But luckily, I was just an employee, and I learned from my boss on that show, Chris Carter. I learned a lot that holds me in good stead when I work on our new shows.
Yeah, the length of seasons back in those days, now they seem like astonishing. Like so many episodes, so many, and that episodic formula that now is kind of dead. Yeah. Now even a superhero TV show is not about episodic plots, but the sense of a whole feature film for each season.
Yes, it's very interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. When I was on the X-Files, the philosophy, certainly at least in American television, was that there was a rule of thumb we had. There was a belief that even fans of any particular TV show probably only saw 1 out of 4 episodes of that TV show. So in the case of the X-Files, for instance, if you were a fan of the X-Files, you missed 3/4 of the episodes. You only saw 1 out of 4. And so therefore the philosophy then in television and all of television was to be very episodic. You could watch the episodes out of order. They didn't string together into a bigger story. And then when Breaking Bad started, I wanted to do a serialized show.
Yeah, because X-Files came in a time before there was a sense of collecting TV series.
Yes.
I remember the DVDs, the DVD pack came like halfway into the whole series.
Sure, yeah.
At the beginning of the X-Files, it was like, okay, we have every week we're going to show you this little feature film, and if you watch it, it's okay, but if you miss it, don't worry.
Right.
We'll get a new one.
Which
is completely different to what we have today.
It's very different now, but when I started Breaking Bad, there was resistance to the idea of a serialized show where each episode built upon the previous episode. It was there was a bit of concern that this won't work. People don't want serialization. But luckily, the technology changed just a couple of years after Breaking Bad started with streaming video on demand, like with I believe Movie Star here, and all the different. Well, maybe Movie Star's not that way, but all the different companies allowing you to watch things on your computer and just consume them like eating potato chips, one right after the other, watching episodes, and that allowed for serialized stories versus episodes that weren't connected to one another. Yeah.
I remember watching the series. I think it's the fourth season when I saw what became one of my instant favorite episodes. It was about this guy having this strange seizure, and he has to get in a car, and he has to run at some specific speed or his head explodes.
Yes, right.
And that episode had a really beautiful ending and a really beautiful finish line. I just remember the line in Spanish. It's about the West is over. When he reached the coast.
We've run out of
That
West.
was amazing.
Yeah.
And that episode was written by you, directed by Rob Bowman.
That's
which
right.
is my favorite.
Yeah, he's a very fine director. Yeah.
And the main character was played by Bryan Cranston. Yeah. And that episode is called Drive, and that is the hidden pilot for Breaking Bad.
That's right. You're right, Nacho. Yeah, that was the first time. That was an X-File episode. The first time I ever worked with Bryan Cranston, and he didn't remember me years later when I wanted to meet. No, he didn't. I remembered him always from working with him in that episode of the X-Files. Years later, his agent said to him, "There's a guy named Vince Gilligan who'd like for you to come in and talk to him about a show called Breaking Bad, and he remembers you well. You worked with him on the X-Files." And he said, "You remember him, of course." And Bryan said, "No, don't remember. Doesn't ring a bell." But that was kind of like the secret pilot, I guess.
Pilot. It's funny because he's in that episode he's playing Walter White from the last Breaking Bad season.
Yeah.
He's the desperate Walter White.
Yeah, he plays a character who's very angry and very bitter and nasty and scary. He's got Agent Mulder, he's got a gun to his head, and he says, "Keep driving," And I learned a lot from that episode of The X-Files about this actor. I realized this actor, Bryan Cranston, could do anything. He could be scary, but he could break your heart. He could make you feel sorry for him. And then I realized after that became a show called Malcolm in the Middle that he was the star of. And when I saw that, I had already worked with him on the X-Files, and when that show came on the air, I said to myself, I didn't know he could be funny.
Yeah.
I didn't know he could be so he could do anything. So at that point, I knew I want to work with this guy in the future.
Yeah, in that show, he plays the quintessential daddy.
Yeah.
And like, that guy cannot be dark. And then you see this other stuff, and it's like, you're blown away with him.
Right, exactly. We called Breaking Bad in the early days, we called it Malcolm in the Meth Lab. Yeah.
Great. You said many times that Breaking Bad is a show about change, about the possibility of change. And we all know that Walter White changes through the series, and he becomes a different kind of character. But I'm intrigued about how the series changed by itself, because when you watch the whole series up to the ending, and then you decide to watch the first episode again, the pilot, you realize the series has changed.
Yeah.
The tone has changed. The visual language of the movie has changed.
Yeah, that's true.
How do you feel about that? I mean, that's really interesting.
I feel wonderful about that, but I do not take credit for all of that. In other words, this is the wonderful thing about television, that it is a very collaborative medium. And actually, film is a collaborative medium as well, but in film we have the auteur theory where people say it's the director and the director makes it all happen. And there's some truth to that, but really in any medium of art where it takes many artists, not just one artist. If you're a painter, you're the auteur. You created the painting all by yourself. When you have 130 people, 150 people on a film set, and that could be a movie or a TV show, you can be the boss. I'm lucky to be the showrunner, but I am not the only artist. And so all of that to say, it's wonderful to embrace the collaborative nature of television. I love it. And to answer your question, the only time I was ever working on Breaking Bad alone was when I was writing that very first episode. And over the years, the following 61 episodes that came after the first episode, I had writers around me working with me who added so much to the characters. And then, of course, we had actors playing the characters who added an untold amount to these characters. And then after the first episode, we had many other directors. We had other producers. We had various production designers and cinematographers. They all added to the mix. They added to the stew, to the paella. You know, they added they add out different ingredients, and so when you watch the first episode versus the last episode, the characters are very different by design, but then it looks different, and it just was a natural evolution, a progression that happened without my guidance. It just sort of evolved on its own, and I think that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, you don't think yourself as an author, but the series, the way it evolves from the pilot to the last episode, it gets like increasingly interested in the timing of the sequences, in watching things in detail, in not rushing, like not being afraid of silence, not being afraid of developing characters, not necessarily through a conversation, but through their actions, which is infrequent even in prestige TV. And then Better Call Saul feels like the continuation of that style.
Okay.
Like you can draw a really specific ramping line from the Breaking Bad pilot to the last Better Call Saul episode. So you are going in one direction somehow.
We are, but it is, and I don't mean to sound falsely modest. I'm very proud of the work I've done, and I am an author. My only thought about the auteur theory is it takes many authors.
Okay.
It takes a lot of people to build a bridge or a skyscraper, or it takes a lot of people to make a movie or a TV show, especially a TV show. But yes, I feel pride of authorship, but I share it with many people. But yes, it was very much, we designed certain things as authors, as showrunners. We share authorship when we design things, but sometimes, not really sometimes, all the time, the show takes on a life of its own, and characters come alive in ways that you don't foresee, which I think is a wonderful thing to be embraced and not to be feared.
Yeah, this is a question that always comes. Like when you wrote the pilot, did you have a sense of the series as a whole?
I thought I did, and I was wrong.
Yeah.
No, and this is an important point I try to make. It's good to have an idea. I use the analogy, if you set out on a road trip, if you're going to drive across Spain or Europe or whatnot, it's good to have a destination in mind when you're getting in your car. But it'd be a shame to be very rigid. I'm only going to drive this one road and follow my map. There's a beautiful road over here, but I'm going to keep going because the road map says go straight. It would be a shame to not give yourself the freedom to take the side roads that might be more interesting. Yeah. If you eventually meander back to your ultimate destination, good. You might wind up at a slightly different destination. It's, in other words, good to have a plan, but then to be able to discard it, throw it away. Yeah.
When you see the pilot separated from everything else, that's the situation when you see the pilot for the first time. You don't have expectations about what the series is about. Right. It feels like, in terms of the tone, it feels like this is going to be like a dark comedy, like a black comedy. Yeah. Like, I remember the movies at that time were kind of a Fight Club, for example. I remember thinking, this is like a Chuck Palahniuk kind of story about this middle-aged man just going to the stream in this. So this is going to be funny in this way. Right. But during the first season, already in the middle of the season, it gets kind of depressed. Yeah. Already. Yeah. Yeah. So the series, instead of being about these two crazy guys doing crazy stuff, it's about the consequences of what happens in the first episode.
Yes.
And that is really brave.
Oh, thank
you were like aware of that?
I was very aware of that. I'm very reactive. I think we all are sometimes, more than we like to be, but I think I react to things from other shows. For instance, the X-Files, we were talking about that.
Yeah.
The X-Files was not unique in this, but when we talked a minute ago about the episodes being episodic. You could watch them in any order. When you make an episodic TV show, which was what most TV shows were 15, 20 years ago and before, characters by necessity can't change that much. They can't grow, they can't develop, they can't get better or worse. They have to, in other words, on an episode, one week we did an episode of The X-Files where Agent Mulder, the star of the show, had to kill someone.
Yeah.
He had to. It was him or the other guy. He had to save his life, but he had to shoot a guy dead right in the middle of his own living room of his apartment. And off camera, we cleaned up the body, cleaned up the blood stain, and he's sleeping in his apartment the next episode, you know. And I thought to myself when we were doing that, in real life, that would change you. No matter how tough you were. If you shot a guy dead in your apartment, I would have trouble sleeping in my apartment. I would have a lot of problems I would be very nervous, and I think to myself, in real life, we suffer consequences for our actions. Some are good, some are bad. Many are unforeseeable. We don't see them coming.
Yeah.
But I thought to myself, I would love to be able to do a TV show where people suffer consequences in a realistic fashion, unlike the kind of TV I've been writing at that point for 7 years or more. And so the thing I enjoyed the most about Breaking Bad was thinking, myself and the other writers thinking, okay, so he has to do these things. There have to be consequences to these things. That was the most exciting part for me.
Yeah, Agent Scully got traumatized in every X-Files episode, but the trauma only lasted for a week.
Right,
so it was kind of okay.
Yeah, exactly.
But you got in Breaking Bad, you have the tough cop, you have Hawk. And one of the seasons is about Hawk dealing with post-traumatic disorder.
Yes, that's right.
Which is like, so it's a complete new device in TV.
There probably were other shows that dealt with it some, probably in shows, not American shows. I'd love to take credit, we invented something new, that is probably not true, but definitely in American shows at the time, there were not extended consequences to actions, and I am proud we were able to begin to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes the film, the series seems to be self-aware of not being another kind of series. And I remember that, again, going back to the pilot, it was like, okay, this is going to be a procedural show in which this teacher is against evil guys, the kingpins, all those crime lords and the police. And we'll have the experiment of the week. Yeah. Like every week he's going to make this little experiment. Yeah. Sometimes the series is kind of making a joke about that. Yeah. Like it's self-aware of the kind of show it isn't. Yeah,
that's, thank you for saying that. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Oh,
no,
please don't die.
I'm not going to die. I'll live. What was I going to say? I just don't want to burp into the microphone. Okay. I'm trying not to do that. That would be rude. Sorry. I had a big breakfast. It seems to me that there's no point in doing something that feels like everything else that came before it. So a big part of what we were excited about with Breaking Bad was creating a TV show that felt different. So sometimes it was fun to point out the way a TV show might normally do something and then go the other way. But we always, to answer your question, yes, we always were excited to make the show feel very different from other TV shows. We would do just about anything we could to make that happen.
Yeah,
and,
that's really great.
Even with the way we shot the show, on X-Files, for instance, everything was very tight on the show. We always cut into the forehead and the framing, and we would do that. It's good to be able to do that when things are tense on the show, but sometimes the X-Files episode would start off like that, where Mulder would say, "Hey, Scully, want to go get some coffee?" Yeah, I'd like to
Yeah,
get some
yeah.
coffee. It's like you have nowhere to go after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we would start out very wide on Breaking Bad. It was, as I say, I'm somewhat reactive to which very, very wide, and then only when it really, really counted would we go in
Yeah.
tight. So
Yes.
we were, in other words, reacting to other shows the way other shows did it. So we went the opposite way.
There's something that is really satisfying from the director's and writer perspective, in both of the shows we're talking about. You were actually talking about this. I mean, most of TV shows are based in the human scale. It's
Yeah.
about people.
Yeah.
But in Breaking Bad and even more in Better Call Saul, those shows are about a different kind of a scale. Those shows are about people, but also about objects and about the spaces. Like the attention you give and the importance you give to objects in that series and to environments is kind of unique.
Oh, nice. Well, thank you.
This is something that how this gets translated into the script?
It was not, I'd love to say it was a conscious thought, and we said I'd love to be able to, I'm not going to lie to you, I'd love to be able to say, we thought to ourselves, I love the way you just put it, you know, most shows are about human scale, we should make, honestly, it became a byproduct of going wider, because other TV shows were tight, but at the time, Breaking Bad went on the air a little more than 10 years ago, TVs you could buy and own in your home were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They got flatter and flatter and wider. And I thought, let's frame big for these wonderful new TVs that are 50 inches, however many, a meter across, So it became a byproduct of that. And we got very lucky because the TVs were getting bigger, but we also got lucky because we wound up shooting in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Which was a mistake almost at the beginning. I set the show, set Breaking Bad to take place in Los Angeles when I first wrote the very first episode because I just wanted to sleep in my own bed at night because I live in Los Angeles, and then and go to the set, and Sony, our studio, some of the executives at Sony came to me early on and said, "What do you think about shooting in New Mexico?" And New Mexico is maybe. What is it? Maybe like 1,000 kilometers east of Los Angeles. So it's about, takes about 2 hours to fly there commercially. And I thought, gosh, I don't know much about New Mexico. Why would we shoot there? And they said, because the state of New Mexico they'll give money back. They have a very good deal where they really want us to come shoot there. So they'll give us a rebate and you'll have more money to work with as a producer. And I thought, okay, all right, so we did it, but that was not the intention. But the show now is known 10 years later for being about these big Western landscapes, and that was a lucky accident. Framing getting wider and a landscape that I never wrote the original episode to take place in, but that evokes the thought of a Western. It makes me think of the wonderful old Leone westerns that are shot right here in Spain. That were shot right here in Spain. We got great inspiration from Once Upon a Time in the West and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. All these wonderful movies.
And also the Scorsese film Casino. Every time they go to the desert, something wrong is going to happen.
Oh yeah.
So every time your characters are going to the desert, okay, who's going to die?
Oh, bad things happen in the desert. Bad things. Oh yeah, you don't want to. And Albuquerque and New Mexico, where we shoot, beautiful place, nice people. If you don't have enough sunscreen on, if you don't have enough of this, and if you don't have a big enough hat, you go out there, you'll be dead in a couple hours. The desert will kill you. It is unforgiving, and so it works very well as a setting. Yeah.
I remember you're familiar, of course, with the A-Team.
Oh yes,
it's really famous in Spain, El Equipo A. And in those episodes, in the episode of the A-Team, there's a moment in which they are building something, this contraption, and then we got this jump cut montage, and we had this music behind, and In Breaking Bad and in Better Call Saul, as the series progressed, you're getting more attention to the process.
Yes.
And for example, in Better Call Saul, season 2 or season 3. I'm sorry, my brain.
No,
is...
that's okay. No.
Season 3.
Yeah.
Mike is searching for a tracking device in
Yes.
his van.
Yes.
And instead of just making the traditional ellipses,
Yeah.
okay, let's see how this guy is looking for a tracking device.
Yeah.
It reminded me. I hope this reference makes sense. The French Connection.
Oh, I love
the
the. Yes, that's what we were thinking of.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. Oh, I love one of my favorite movies.
I just won a bet right now.
Yeah. Oh,
I
good.
just won a bet because I was watching this with a friend. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay. This was made with the French Connection in mind.
Oh, yeah.
You just gave me 100 euros.
Oh, fantastic. Good for you.
I'm richer now. Thanks
Good,
to
good, good
thanks
for
to
you.
Vince Gilligan.
I'm glad. So true. I love the French Connection.
How
Yeah.
does all this stuff, how that attention to detail that is so infrequent, even in a show like Mad Men or The Wire, The Shield, what comes to your mind when you think about the biggest TV shows in prestige terms? How does that get anticipated in the script? Because it's just about attention to detail in a way that is difficult to express in words.
It is difficult to express in words, but it is always expressed in words.
It's always expressed in words.
When we, and it's not that we don't trust our directors. We have wonderful directors who add value to all the scripts, but we the writers on the show we spend a lot of time in the writers' room figuring out, pre-visualizing, coming up with a story, and when we do, it's not that we say, okay, it has to be, medium shot, thus and so. We don't try to. It's hard to explain. If you read a Breaking Bad or a Better Call Saul script, you would see pages sometimes without a single word of dialogue, pages of scene description. 2, 3, 4. We probably had episodes that had 4 or 5 pages. If a page of a script, I'm sure you folks probably know, it's the rough thumbnail idea of a screenplay is that it's a page equals a minute of screen time, or at least it's supposed to. So we'll have 4 or 5 minutes, 4 or 5 pages of script where there's no dialogue, just describing everything. And it makes us, I guess, we're a little bit, how you say, control freaks. We're control freaks. We call it that, I guess. But it's not describing the actual lens or it's just describing what we're seeing on camera, which sounds like kind of the same thing, but we're not trying to tell the director how to do his or her job, but we are trying to explain through the process of screenwriting what's important to focus on and what's not.
It's a fest for a director. It's like free drinks on a bar.
Oh, okay.
Because when you have a dialogue, you know that you have to be, I don't know, you have to do the reverse traditional shot.
Sure.
Here, this and the profile thing.
Yeah.
But when you have those sequences, I mean, you are complete freedom. Not complete freedom, but you have a lot of tools to express something, and you know that it's not going to be cut later in the finished product. So it's. I mean, I feel like your directors can be really happy about
I hope so. Sometimes our directors seem to like it. Some directors feel that they are being dictated to, and they feel like, oh, that's my job, that's not your job. And I understand that. I understand why someone would feel that way, but that's the way we do it. But now we love those montages that you're talking about. We had a producer who said montage is a French word that means over budget.
Yeah.
Because they take a long time to shoot. A lot of little pieces. That sequence in the junkyard looking for the bug with Mike took. I directed that one.
Yeah.
It took so long.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, oh, I hate. Yeah. I'm so tired of being in this junkyard. I want to get out of this junkyard. Yeah. But it was. We were very much inspired by the sequence at the end of the French Connection when they're looking for the heroine. And they finally find it in the rocker panels. So what the hell's a rocker panel? Get the heroine. Yeah. The French Connection actually is a great inspiration for the general look of Breaking Bad.
Oh, really?
In terms of the handheld aspect of the show. Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, we don't do handheld. But
even
Breaking Bad, we
during
did.
Breaking Bad, the handheld thing got more and more little as the series progressive.
As in we used less of it?
Yeah, less of it. I'm sorry, my English
no,
sometimes is
you're right. I think you're probably right. We probably did wind up using less of it. I think the camera operators got tired.
Okay.
So, can we? But the one thing I loved about so much I love about the French Connection. But one thing was it was handheld in sort of a news camera sense. In the old days, combat camera work in the war, you'd have a cameraman with a little Filmo camera, a Bell & Howell Filmo, and he wouldn't be able to carry a tripod because it weighs too much. So he'd have to be his own tripod, hold the camera very steady. So it was not handheld for the sake of being handheld. It was handheld for lack of a tripod. So we took that as an inspiration. I took that as an inspiration when I was directing the pilot episode of Breaking Bad. The camera very steady, hold it as steady as a person could, but still nonetheless it breathes a little. It just has to because a human being's not a tripod. So that was very much inspired by the look of French Connection.
I feel like this room is mostly filled with writers, so let's stop talking about the cameras.
Okay.
They may be angry. Let's go back to the freedom of each episode from the writing perspective. Like, for example, you are not forced to have a climax at the end. You're not forced anymore to make this really specific structure.
Yeah.
And the 3-act structure, the 4-act structure.
Yeah.
There's one episode that comes to my mind all the time, and it's in the second season. It's called Over.
Yes.
And it's about Walt Whitman, like this. There's kind of this meta reflection on the characters. Like, this is Walt Whitman deciding he's not the main character in this series anymore. Like, okay, I'm not a genre main character. I'm going to be a normal guy. And the whole episode is about this guy trying to be normal, and there's no plot, there's no something big going on. It's just about perceiving how Walter White exists out of the frame of Breaking Bad. Until the very end, when he says he sees all the other potential drug distributors, he says, "Stay out of my territory," which is one of the best.
I'm glad you like that one. That was a tricky episode to write. That was written by a woman named Moira Wally Beckett, who's a wonderful writer, and she wrote probably the very best episode of Breaking Bad that ever was, which was Ozymandias, which is the one where Hank...
Ozymandias,
Ozymandias, where Hank got killed.
Directed by Ryan Johnson.
Ryan Johnson directed it. Yeah, that was the third to final episode of the whole series. But Moira, pretty sure Moira directed the one you're talking about. They all run together in my head sometimes, but Moira, I think, wrote that one. But that was a tricky episode because, as you say, not a whole lot happened. Yeah. So that scares you. In the writer's room, that scared all of us. That and the fly episode where they're trying to kill the fly, that scared all of us. Because
how do you write nothingness? Like,
it's hard. Yeah. It's scary. And oddly enough, when we come up with we board every episode. As in, the way we do it, we have a big cork board with thumbtacks, and we put each plot beat on an index card with magic marker, with marker pen, and when the episode has a lot going on, it's only one board. It takes less. Yeah. But then when you have an episode like Fly or Over where not that much happens, you need 2 boards, which is weird. My God. I don't know why that is, but it's the way it always works out because you get very nervous that not enough is happening, so you tend to get very precise about what it is that is happening. And you write a lot more on the cards when you put them up, and you get nervous about those episodes. But the great thing about television is no television show lives or dies on any one episode. Yeah. And that's why I used to write movies, and maybe I'll write movies again someday, but I love television. I would if you said to me you could only ever do TV, I'd say that's fine. Because movies, they're great. Movies are wonderful, but TV works best for me. I work best in television, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but one of the reasons is you have a bigger canvas, and each individual piece of the painting, so to speak, is the totality of the story doesn't live or die with any one episode. But when you do a movie, You have to have the big ending. You have to have start, middle, and finish. It all has to work because it's all the one chance you got. And in TV, it takes pressure off you to not have to worry too much about any one episode. Having said that, you still want every episode to be great. You try.
But we are in these interesting times where the difference between TV and films are not based in status. Like, okay, these are the movies. Everybody wants to make movies.
Yeah.
And some people have to go on with TV.
Right.
Because it feels like they cannot go there. But now we are in this scenario in which a feature film and a TV series are, the difference is about the length and the structure.
That's about it. Yeah. No, you're right. When I started in America, and it's probably the same way all over the world, but certainly where I was working, movies were it. The movie, that's what you wanted to do. You wanted to make movies. And TV, good, it's like, nice try, pat on the head. You're not ready for movies, but TV. TV it's a wonderful evolution that's happened. And I think it's happened all around the world where TV is just as well received, some places sometimes even better, but there shouldn't be a fight between the two. They're both wonderful. They're two different, it's like saying, poetry is better than painting or whatever. No, it's not. They're just different. I mean, and yet they're not. I mean, the funny thing is, it's funny how close they are together. But if you were to show up on a set, on a production set, either for a movie or a TV show, and no one told you what was being shot, you wouldn't know. Is it a TV? Is it a TV? You might if there were, some big movies have 300 people, some TV shows have 100 people, but other than that, you wouldn't even know what you were looking at. The storytelling process, the tools needed to create this thing, they all are shared between movies and TV. The only real difference, it seems to me, is a movie is 2 hours worth of story, and a TV show is 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 hours worth of story. That's the only real difference. So there shouldn't be a competition between them.
No, not anymore. And from the mere creative point of view, I mean, in the past, if you wanted to play with nothingness, with emptiness, it could only be happening in our house films, like, let's say, Antonioni, Alberto Serra, and going to the streams. But now you can play with emptiness in a mainstream genre TV show like Better Call Saul, which is spectacular. Oh. So that's the actual lack of difference these days. Yeah. So after Breaking Bad, by the way, let's talk a bit about. Should I move to the audience questions? Maybe that's a good idea because I completely lost the sense of time. I don't know if we are about to finish or. 4 minutes? Do you want me to keep going on? Okay, let's talk a bit about the ending of Breaking Bad because there's a lot of pressure about the ending. People love to hate the endings of TV shows. Mm-hmm. People love to hate those. And it's really refreshing to hate the ending of a beloved TV show. There's something really interesting happened in Breaking Bad because the ending of that series was the classic ending that you can expect from the very first episode. Okay, this is going to be Scarface, and the guy is going to die, and in a way that we're going to see the true self, the true character. Like that's the real thing about this character, and he's going to die with a sense of fulfillment. Fulfillment.
Yes,
like, this is what I love. This is what I do, and I'm going to die doing that. Yeah. So that is something you can expect from the very beginning. And we're living in a time in which we need to find things unexpected. Yeah. So you did a last episode that was somehow foreseeable, but you did it in a way that was truly satisfying for everybody.
Good. I'm glad. Sometimes the foreseeable ending is your most satisfying ending. Yeah. And it's a funny thing. We spent many, many months trying to figure out that ending, and I was so nervous. I was so distraught. Yeah. I knew we had been very lucky in that people loved our show. People were watching. People were paying attention. And I got very nervous that we would not fulfill the promise of the series and that people would be disappointed with the ending. So we went through dozens and dozens of different versions of what might happen in the final episode, and it finally dawned on us. And we kept saying to ourselves, what's the most surprising thing that could happen? How do we shock the audience? How do we surprise them? Surprise them. That's it kept saying over and over. What's the big surprise? Yeah. Finally, it dawned on us. The big surprise was, who cares about the surprise?
Yeah.
What more important that things are satisfying.
Yeah.
That there's satisfaction. That things feel true and authentic. That the ending feels earned. That finally dawned on us. And then having said that, I mean, we said to ourselves, what's the promise made to the audience in the very first episode? The promise is that the hero is going to die.
Yeah.
So he better die.
So there wasn't a version, a possible version of the ending in which Walter White kills everybody and even kills cancer and survives. And he's the only...
We had a version like that.
Really?
We had a version where everyone died, the bad guys, but also his whole family. And he was standing there amidst his wife and children, and everyone was dead, and he was the only one who was alive. And for about an hour or two after lunch one day, we were very excited about this.
Yeah.
And we said to ourselves, "Oh, the irony! Oh,
the irony! Yeah.
It's so artistic."
Yeah.
And then we thought more about it. We're like, "Ugh, that idea is terrible." But it's okay to do that. It provided you have the time.
So you introduce a virus that kills everybody on Earth but him. So
well,
he becomes.
We didn't go that far.
I am Legend.
That would be interesting. No, we didn't go that far. But we thought if the whole family, I don't think it was going to be that he killed the family, but he did by his actions. He didn't directly, but indirectly he did. But then we thought, that's terrible. I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to say to yourself, what do I want to see? What do I, one of the writers of the show, want to see? And we do think of ourselves on Better Call Saul as we did on Breaking Bad. We think of ourselves as the very first fans of the show. We are we're not the most important fans, but we're the first fans to understand what the story is. And very often we say to ourselves, what do we want to have happen? Yeah. But that's a danger as a writer. It's okay to do that, but it's a dangerous thing as a writer to impose too much your will, to try to impose your will on the character, because then your writing can get very inorganic. And really the best way it works for us, we found, is to try to listen to what it sounds like a weird thing, but try to listen to what the character's saying. What does the character want? Yeah. Sometimes a character tells you, and you're surprised. You're thinking, why does the character want to do this? But then the character's sort of telling you what she or he wants to do. And if you listen hard enough and you go with it, that's where some of the surprises in writing come from, and they're truly the wonderful moments. A good example being, when I first wrote the very first Breaking Bad episode, I thought to myself, this is a good man. He's cooking crystal meth for his family. It's a bad thing that he does, and he winds up killing someone in the very first episode, and he's not proud of that, but he's still a good guy. He's doing what he does for good reasons, even though they're bad things that he does. About 4 episodes into the series, we kept that concept going. He's a good guy. He's good. And then it dawned on us, how are we going to do this forever? How is he going to just make money and be good? And it dawned on us, he's not really that good. And in the 4th episode, we proved that point by having a very rich couple, old friends of his, say to him, we're gonna pay for your cancer treatment. We're gonna give you a good job. You're never, things are gonna be good. Basically, it was very purposely, it was a Deus Ex Machina kind of an event where all his problems were solved. No strings attached. Yeah. The only string attached, it turned out to be his pride was angered, was hurt by this. And so at the end of that episode, he says, thank you, no thank you, to the rich people. No thank you. I'm good. And then he goes back and he says to his partner, Jesse Pinkman, let's cook. Yeah. And that was a big powerful moment for us in the writer's room because we didn't see it coming. We didn't plan for it. The character told us he needed to do this.
And you're expecting for him, Jesse Pinkman, to become like sidekicks. You're expecting for them to become like this buddy relationship,
Right.
and it never happens.
Right.
I mean, you see all the, normally in fiction, in genre fiction, or slash comedy, the junkies are really funny.
Yeah.
Drug addicts,
Right.
they're doing crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But in this case, you see the reality of being a drug addict, and you see how Walt Whitman is not aware of that. He's punishing this guy.
Yeah.
All along the series, they never become good friends.
Right.
You're expecting that to happen eventually,
Right.
and
Sure.
it never happens.
Sure.
So that is really, really intentional.
Intention. It's a funny thing. It's hard to say what's intentional. It is always our intention to do something different than we normally see. And as you just said, it a lot of times, the lethal weapon. The buddy.
Yeah, you want them to like each other.
Yeah, you in a movie, and you can do that easier in a movie.
Yeah.
The two cops who are partners and they hate each other, but then they have respect for one another. And by the end, they're like buddies, and they're and that's nothing wrong with that. That's satisfying. But our intention was to do something different, but also we didn't want to impose on the characters our thoughts, and the characters didn't seem to want to do that.
Yeah.
And the two actors, especially Bryan Cranston, didn't seem to want to go that way. And by that, I don't mean that Bryan ever came to me and said, hey, one thing you can never do is have us be too close. He never did that. He never did it. He was very respectful of the writing process, as we were of the acting process. But he did, by his demeanor, by the way he presented the character, it just never felt right. He never dictated. He never said, don't do this. But it just, the character and the way the actor portrayed the character portrayed a sense of, I'm Walter White, this person I work with, I will grudgingly respect him from time to time, but I will never truly, and I'll protect his life at certain key moments. I'm never going to be.
Father figure.
Yeah, I don't want to be, and inadvertently, I may become a father figure to him, but that's not my intention.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to grow too fond of him because at the end of the day, he's an uneducated little junkie.
Yeah,
and I am a great chemist, and somehow I depend on him. I don't want to depend on him too much, and I don't want to feel fondness for him. The character told us that.
You're making really clear that Jesse Pinkman is just crying for a father figure in his life, but Walter Whitman is never going to become that.
Does not want that.
So
he has his own family. He is a father, not to this little junkie.
Yeah.
That's the way he sees it.
Yeah, that's so cruel.
Yeah, he's not a nice guy.
My last question, prepare yours. I need to ask about this. So when you were announcing Better Call Saul, being Saul Goodman, somehow the comic relief of the Breaking Bad show, we were expecting this is going to be the crazy spin-off of the original series. This is going to be the long gunman of...
This
is going to be the long gunman of... we are big fans of long gunman, by the way.
I love that. That was a fun show.
I love the show.
We had a good time doing that.
Long gunman, the spin-off of X-Files, it only lasted for...
It only lasted 13 episodes. Yeah.
So we were expecting the crazier version of Breaking Bad, probably more violent, more crazy, more unexpected.
Right.
But the surprise is that series is actually two series into one. It's Max series and Saul series.
Yes.
And the arc of both characters is portrayed in a more delicate way than Breaking Bad.
Yes.
It becomes the more nuanced and delicate version of Breaking Bad. It's going in the opposite direction of what we expected.
Yes.
So
it's going the opposite direction of what we expected too. We, the authors, the writers of it.
That is so
it's
brave.
True. Well, thank you, but it's not completely, as I was saying earlier, it's not completely intentional. Characters take on their own lives. And the worst thing you can do is, I say it again, the worst thing you can do as a writer is to try too hard to dictate, is to say, this character is going off in this direction. I'm going to steer him back this way because I have great plans for a big scene where, the worst thing you could do, I think, is we say, I've got this big idea in my head for a big ending at the end of the season. Things are going to blow up and blah, blah, blah. It's going to happen at this truck stop. And the characters would never be at this truck stop, but who cares? I'll make up some things. I'll lay some pipe, as we call it. I'll lay the pipe so that they get to the truck stop. The heck with whatever you have in mind at the end. You have to go minute by minute. What does the character want?
Yeah.
And these characters on Better Call Saul want something different than we thought they did.
Yeah, you expect both other characters running away from the narcos.
Yeah.
Like with a suitcase and a gun.
Yeah.
And the antagonist of the series is his brother.
Yeah.
Who is running a firm,
Yeah.
and they have this kind of family tension.
Yeah, we did not see that coming. When we created the character, we thought he was going to be a good guy, and he turned into a bad guy. It's very strange. Yeah, that's what I love most about writing for television, is these possibilities.
So I'm open the questions for the audience down there.
Oh, okay, gotcha. You got it.
Yeah, you have this.
Gotcha.
Here.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks.
That's okay.
Good morning. Mr. Here, over here.
Hi.
Over here, at your left.
Oh, there. Oh, I'm sorry. There was someone there.
Sorry,
Okay.
sorry.
Everyone's waving. Hi.
I am a PhD student doing my thesis on Breaking Bad.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. Gosh,
welcome.
that's an honor.
So
Thank
happy
you.
to see you here.
Thank you.
I'm focusing on the term bad fans that Emily Nussbaum, the TV critic on The New Yorker,
Yes.
developed.
Yes.
So what do you think about that?
I'm sorry, bad
Fans.
Bad fans.
She calls us the bad fans because we are still standing on Walter White.
I know Emily Nussbaum a little bit. It's a wonderful lady. She interviewed me one time, I'm not as familiar with this part of it. As in, fans are bad because they still love Walter White.
Yes.
I don't think that makes a person a bad fan. I will say this: if fans are bad, if Breaking Bad fans are bad fans because they still root for Walter White, then my own very sweet 80-year-old mother is a bad fan. She said to me, I don't believe for a minute that my mother, Gail Gilligan, back in Chesterfield County, Virginia, I don't believe for a minute that she would have ever watched Breaking Bad, except that her son wrote it, or was a writer on it. But when it all ended, she called me up and she said, I was so sorry to see Walter White die. I think he should have gotten away with it. And I said, Mom, he was a meth dealer. He's a horrible person. But we had a wonderful time making this show, but when you make something and you put it out in the world, it's no longer yours. You have a connection to it. That's never going to change. I'm always going to have a connection to it. But I would no more judge the fans of the show. It's not for me to judge. I don't tell a story so that you, the audience, has a very specific feeling. I want you to have a general feeling, but I mainly just want you to watch. I want you to enjoy. This is the most wonderful thing. People show up because they're interested but when you put it out in the world, it's for the fan to decide. The only thing that threw me, I'm not troubled at all by the fact, I don't think it makes one a bad fan if they still root for Walter White, not at all. The only thing that troubled me throughout the life of the series was the animosity some fans had toward Skylar White, Walt's wife. We didn't see that coming. That surprised us. But again, it's not for me to tell people they're right or they're wrong. I think it's an interesting thought that Ms. Nussbaum has, but I don't have a strong opinion about. I don't know that she's right, or wrong. I don't really think about such things, I guess.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. One of the things I most enjoyed from both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are the prologues. no, that you, and I believe that you haven't mentioned yet, these very microfilms that are before the credits.
Yes, yeah.
That tell us something, sometimes much years before the scene or what happens in that episode. What can you tell us, some special that we don't know, or what did you get the inspiration about these prologues? So fantastic. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. We call that the teaser. There's an opening sequence, usually 3 to 5 minutes long, sometimes only a minute, sometimes 8 minutes long, before the title sequence, and we call that the teaser, as in it teases you to want to continue watching the episode. And I completely took that from the X-Files, and the X-Files was not the first show to do that. Many American shows start with a teaser. Someone else a long time ago made up that name, teaser. We didn't at the X-Files, but we did 202 episodes of the X-Files with a teaser, an opening sequence, pre-title sequence in front of everyone, and they were a lot of fun to do. And so when I had the opportunity to create my own show, I thought to myself, I'm going to take the very shape of the X-Files. I'm just going to take it, because I was writing that way for 7 years. Might as well, no sense fixing it if it isn't broken. I'll go ahead and take the teaser plus 4 acts. So it's technically a 5-act structure divided up by commercial breaks. When you see it on SVOD now, you don't have commercial breaks, but we actually do write for commercial breaks because our broadcaster in the United States is AMC, and they are an ad-supported network. So we still write to the end of an act, have a little cliffhanger at the end of every act as much as we can to keep you watching through the commercial. And I like that structure. I don't love TV commercials, but in some ways I like the creative process that has been wrought by commercial television, in that you have a teaser and then you have you have a reason to keep watching every 10 minutes or so, roughly. I like that. That feels good to me, and so I stick with that structure, and that's a good structure for me.
Yeah, I remember that in the X-Files, those teasers were almost self-contained short films.
They often were.
And in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, you're playing a bigger kind of puzzle.
Okay.
Like you're sending puzzles or something that we don't know. We don't know what's about in advance.
Right.
And there's something that will get revealed much
sometimes
later.
we do. We'll have we'll have a teaser that shows the end of the episode.
Yeah.
And we did that a couple times on the X-Files. So we haven't done anything on Breaking Bad that we didn't do in some form or another on the X-Files. But we have fun with those. We don't want to have too many rules regulating them. We want to just essentially come up with something every episode that we ourselves find interesting, and that we hope the audience will find interesting as well.
Hi, I read or I heard in an interview that you very often would write a treatment for about 12 to 14 pages for every episode.
Yeah.
So I was really curious, like what your process is in the writer's room, from brainstorming to I imagine plotting out an entire arc over the series.
Yeah.
And what you said before, like sometimes you would have to get very detailed on your cork boards.
Yeah.
Like how do you know when, okay, this scene is going to have enough like Breaking Bad sauce or whatever that's going to make it the thing that it is.
Yeah.
So if you could get like a bit technical there
Sure.
About what happens in the writer's room, that'd be great. Yeah.
No, I'm happy to talk about that all day. That's the most important part of my job, any showrunner's job. And right now, as we speak, what time is it there? They're probably getting to work. Well, not yet, but Better Call Saul season 5 is plugging away without me. Peter Gould, my partner on that show, is doing it is a much more nuanced show in a lot of ways, and it's because of Peter Gould now. He's doing such a wonderful job. But they're doing the same process we did on Breaking Bad. The writer's room is the most important part of it. And as a showrunner, I feel like, and Peter feels like, we don't ever even need to write an episode ourselves. What we do need to do is shepherd the storytelling and all of the episodes through the process of the writer's room so that each individual writer can make each episode great. But the most important part of the job is 6, 7, 8 people sitting around in the writer's room. Typically, we have about 6 writers and a script a writer's assistant. And we just sit in this writer's room, all of us. We always call it the sequestered jury that never ends. Just all of us for months and months on end, 10 hours a day, sitting around this room, asking ourselves the same basic question over and over again. What does our character want right at this moment? Right at the moment we've left him or her at, what does he or she want? And then what's standing in the way of that? That's really all the job is, endlessly. And the job is to not get impatient, not get tired, not get bored, and not say to yourself, close enough. We'll have the writer figure it out. The job is to sit there and look at this corkboard on the wall and fill it up very slowly. On average, it takes us 2 to 3 weeks of concerted effort with 7 people to come up with, to fill that board for one episode. Typically, it fills the whole board, and then that's the episode. Teaser, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, which is exactly what we did in the X-Files, except we didn't have a writer's room in the X-Files. What we do on our show now is really a group effort. And you just, the job is that self-discipline of never satisfying, of never saying, good enough. I don't want to ever hear anyone say good enough. And also want it to be a very safe room, and Peter does too. We don't ever want to, you can do it when you have your own show. There's no one way to do it, and that's one of the beautiful things about doing this job. But the way it works best for us is we don't ever want it to be, we want it to be a safe room. We want all the writers to be able to say any kind of crazy idea and not feel like they're going to be judged for it. And my writers joke with me. I say, that's an interesting idea. And they say, that means he hates it. And that's very often not true, but even if it were true, hearing your idea is interesting. Even if you know it really means that's a crazy idea, it still makes it palatable. It still makes you feel safe. But it's just basically 2 to 3 weeks per episode, filling up that board, and just then and only then does one of the writers go off, the writer of record for that episode, go off and write it. But everyone has been in that room together, so we always say if that writer dropped dead at her desk, we'd push the body aside. Any one of us could go and write that episode. We wouldn't literally do that, but any one of us could write that episode because we all share ownership of it. We all pitched in on it. An important thing, too, for you folks who are going to go off and write for television, a lot of people think, all I really need to be is a great writer on the page, write a great script. From a showrunner's point of view, I would hire, Peter would say the same thing if he were sitting here. If we found someone who's good in the room, and by that I mean someone who is pleasant to be around, who contributes. And when I say contribute, I don't mean that every idea is great, but someone who is paying attention and not falling asleep, not staring off into space and eating candy bars, but actually contributing in the writer's room, helping keep the story moving forward, staying positive. That person, he or she, is worth their weight in gold. And if that person never writes their own script, we would still probably make them an executive producer eventually. That's the most, a lot of people don't tell you this, but from a showrunner's point of view, the most important thing you can do is contribute in that writer's room. Writing, the actual physical act of writing a good script all on your own is not as important as that. And that's a thing that I realize people don't understand, because a lot of writers we've seen as we hired over the years, they thought all that really matters is I'm good on the page. And that's a good thing too. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. But if you can only get one thing right, be an asset, be helpful in the writer's room. Yeah.
That was amazing. Yeah. So I think we have time for 2 or more questions.
Hi.
Hi, Mr. Spencer. Bryan Cranston is always talking about that scene in Breaking Bad where Walter lets Jane die.
Yeah, that's a big one.
And how traumatized he was after shooting that. How did you write, or how did you plan that scene? Was it that emotionally shocking for you?
That was the big argument, the one big argument I had with AMC, our network. And they were very nice. They were very good to us. and still are, because they're our broadcaster on Better Call Saul as well. They were very good to us and always have been. That was the one time they called me up when they read the outline. Oh, and that's the other thing, outline, super important. It is about 12 to 14 pages long, and it's super detailed, and it comes out a good, sometimes a month before the actual script comes out, and it's a document for the crew. It's very detailed, and the crew can prep on it, and the more the crew knows in advance, the better. So anyway, this 12 to 14 page outline came out on that episode, and everyone's reading it, the crew's reading it, AMC's reading it, and they see the part where he watches her die, and he doesn't stop it, and they said, oh my God. And they called me up, and they said, we understand he's going to be a bad guy, but do you think it's happening too fast? Because we're only in season 2. And hopefully we'll have 4 or 5 or 6 seasons. You think it's going too fast? And my original pitch to the writers in my own writer's room was even worse. It was that he gives her a hot dose of heroin while she's asleep. He gives her a second dose, and he kills her on purpose. And even my writers were like, what the hell is wrong with you? So we landed on, she starts to cough. He's actually the reason she winds up on her back, because he's shaking Jesse, although he doesn't do it on purpose. But if you watch the scene, he's trying to wake up Jesse, and it rolls her over onto her back accidentally. But AMC said, is this too much? And we had a good conversation about it, and ultimately we went with it. But I respected them they were very helpful. But when we wrote that scene, I got to be there. I was not always there for most episodes. I was in the writer's room, because that's the most important job, 1,000 kilometers west. That's the more important job. But I got to be there that day when they shot that. And his reaction, he was thinking of his own daughter, who was about 14, 15 years old at the time. And the tears were absolutely real. And he was shaken for hours afterward. And immediately after we shot that scene, he had to pose with all the other actors and all the crew for the crew photo for the season. And he's got tears streaming down his face, and they're like, he wipes his eyes, and the photographer says, cheese, and everybody, hey!
Yeah.
So it was a very interesting day. I was glad, I felt lucky to be there to watch it happen. Very emotional for him.
And there's something really clever about that plot point, because he's doing something really evil, but he's not killing her, he's not saving her. So
Right.
This is still a hope that this guy is not completely bad.
Yeah, well,
But he's going straight into that.
it's a very complicated moment,
That's a big
because he
difference.
truly, and it's a sin of omission, it's a sin of inaction, but
Yeah.
it's a very complex moment, because he really believes in his heart. It's not just, that's one moment so other moments, things he did were just outright evil. In that moment, it is more nuanced, because he really believes in his heart that this young woman is going to contribute to the death of this young man that he does have some feeling, some regard for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Do we have time for another one? Just one? I'm so sorry.
Hello. So you said that your characters kind of tell you what they want or what they don't want to do.
Yeah.
So how long do you work on them, or in which way before they actually tell you? Because I don't think this comes up in a week or so.
It takes a long time, and it's little baby steps, little incremental steps. It takes a long time. It usually takes 2 to 3 weeks for each episode, and a lot of that, as I say, is asking, almost like a mantra, almost like just something you ask over and over again. What does the character want? And by the virtue of the fact that you continue to ask the one question over and over again, it sounds kind of mystical. I don't mean it to sound mystical. It's just meat and potatoes writing that everyone, that we all try to do. But it's trying very hard to open up your thinking and to get down to the fundamentals of what's going on at this one moment, in order to make the writing organic as possible. And it's a way of removing yourself, the writer, from the character, from the equation, so that you may. the best days on on X-Files, I remember years ago on X-Files, I was a fan of that show before I didn't create that show, I was just a fan, and then I was very fortunate to get hired to write it. But the best moments on that show, I always felt like I heard their voices, I had a sense for their voices, and the best times when I was writing that show, sometimes 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning on a deadline, I'm the only person at the Fox lot, the 20th Century Fox lot. It got kind of creepy, 4 o'clock in the morning, and the only people are the guards a half mile away up at the guard gate, and I'm this creepy lot right in the creepy X-File episode. But I got to the point I could hear Mulder and Scully's voices in my head. Sounds kind of schizophrenic, but I would hear them arguing, and I felt like I was transcribing, like a court reporter, just writing what they were, just listening to them and typing down what they were saying. That is a rare moment when that happens, but it's so wonderful as a writer. Writing, as all the writers in the room know, it's hard. It's a slog. It's just like, it's just like marching through a swamp up to here, just trying to get through the woods. It's just hard work. But every now and then, those moments make it worth it, where it feels easy, where it feels like you're not writing at all. You're just transcribing. Doesn't happen often, but that's the wish, that's the desire. So.
Thank you.
Okay, seems like we have time for one more question, so make sure that is legendary question. Yes.
Voy a preguntar en español. Bueno, a mí me encanta Breaking Bad, pero Better Call Saul es una serie que me gusta más y me parece incluso superior. Y creo que la razón es que mientras en Breaking Bad los personajes están diseñados para guiar la trama, para hacer avanzar la trama, para estar al servicio de Walter, en Better Call Saul tenemos personajes como Kim Wexler, que me parece maravillosa, o Nacho Varga, o Mike, que existen independientemente del protagonista y tienen su propia dimensión dramática y emocional. Y quería saber si esto fue algo intencionado que os propusisteis vosotros hacer o profundizar para dar un paso más allá de la anterior serie.
That's a great question. We very much want Better Call Saul to stand on its own and be its own series. And it's sort of like I was saying a minute ago about these characters taking on a life of their own. Funny thing that happened with Better Call Saul is that when Peter Gould and I started thinking about doing the TV series Better Call Saul, we didn't even know what the show was. We honestly, the first thought we had was that it would be a half-hour long, and it would be a straight-out comedy, and Saul Goodman would be the Saul Goodman we know from Breaking Bad, with the crazy clothes and the crazy office, and different people would come into the office for each half-hour episode, and they would have some problem, some legal problem, and he would fix it, using his abilities to break the law creatively. It's amazing anyone gave us the job of making this show, because we didn't even know what we were going to do. We thought, honestly, I hate to say it, we thought we were going to cash in on Breaking Bad and just knock out a show real quick, and then suddenly it dawned on us, we don't know how to write a half-hour comedy. We don't know how to do that. We only know how to do an hour-long show that's more of a drama. And it really is sort of like I was saying a minute ago, the character came alive to us, and the character told us, first of all, he told us he didn't want to be Saul Goodman, and that was an interesting revelation. We realized the show should be about the person he was before Saul Goodman, this person named Jimmy McGill. And that scared us, because we thought to ourselves, the show is called Better Call Saul. We don't want the audience feeling like they got, we have the expression bait and switch. We have the meaning you're promised one thing, but you get something else. We didn't want the audience feeling like we weren't giving them what they had tuned in for. But the more we thought about it, the more we thought Saul Goodman, it's a tragedy that Jimmy McGill eventually becomes Saul Goodman. We thought, this is not a good outcome. So then it dawned on us, what we need to do is tell the story of this earlier person and the tragic missteps and sadnesses that happen in his life that bring him low to this point. And when we realized that, the show, I mean, it really took on a life of its own, and it became very different than Breaking Bad, which we're very happy about, because we love Breaking Bad, but we didn't want to just do yet more Breaking Bad and not have it be different, not have it have a reason for existence all on its own. But I'm glad you like that show. I can't tell you how often people come up to me and say, I really like Breaking Bad, but I like Better Call Saul even better. And that makes me feel so good. Even though all credit really goes to Peter Gould right now, who's working away. I'm glad I'm still a part of it in some sense. I directed the next episode that airs this coming, I believe it airs Tuesday in Spain. But the next episode is one that I directed I'm very proud of. But it was a script given to me by Peter and the writers, and I just thought it was wonderful. And now I'm a gun for hire, as they say, you know, on that show. But it's a great show.
Nice. So I feel like we all would like to stay here for the rest of the day, just bring in food and listen to Vince, but I'm afraid you need to run away.
I think I'm going to go on the radio, I think. Yeah, I got a radio interview.
It's been a massive pleasure.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Nacho. Thank you.
I feel like you all feel the same.
Thank you. Thank you so much.